We've got a dog that's got bilateral OA, secondary to elbow dysplasia. It's pretty progressed. So we've got some joint restriction. We've got some secondary changes up in the shoulders. We've got some tendinopathies. We've got the typical dog that we see. Is it the sort of thing that could be relevant to those sort of people? Can we help them?
Absolutely. And that's the thing when we look at some of these, when I look at any of the therapies that are available, remember that placebo effect, literally I could just give you a sugar pill and 30% of the time you'll see an improvement.
Yep.
So those are, when people say, oh, we have improvement, I go, well, what level of improvement? And if you look back at the original carprofen and meloxicam studies, at least in the US, the efficacy was 85%.
Yeah.
So it tells us that out of 100 dogs, 85, hey, completely passing grade, will improve. Yeah. Doesn't mean 100%. So just like all of us, we have to find what works for that individual patient, but we also have to give it the right amount of time. So if the dog has excruciating pain in its elbow, is a PEMF device going to solve it? No. Or if it does, it's going to take it 6 weeks, and we don't want that dog to be in agony for 6 weeks.
Yes.
So we have to taper our treatments appropriate to the level of pain and the level of function that the dog or the cat is showing us. And I say cat because I've used pulse PEMF devices on you name it, different species, because it's something that the owners can do at home. So for the patients that stress out, for the patients that can't come into the clinic as often as I might want them to, for all these other reasons, I can use it. So I hand it out a lot like candy, to be honest.
Yeah. I've used it on my cats and I used it on Holly. Sorry.
Well, and it was funny with the cats. I was talking to one of my colleagues the other day and we said, well, how do we know, right? Because how do we know? So there was actually some studies that I'll mention in a second, but the one that was fun about the cats was because with a PEMF device, we don't hear a click. You don't feel a warmth, right? It's an electromagnetic field. It's not like a giant magnet out of a James Bond movie that's going to like pull you up and hold you to the wall. So how do we know it's working? Well, with cats, what was interesting was, and I think because animal sense of hearing is probably vastly so much better than ours, one of my colleagues had a device that was out of power. So it was no longer working at all. And she had another one that was still fully charged. And she turned them on and put them in different ends of her living room. And this, I should say that she had been treating her cat in the living room for its arthritis for about a month. And the cat was getting better, moving around, okay? But she always had to hold the cat on the device. So she was like, well, let me just see if the cat just likes laying with stuff. So she turned on the one that knew that had plenty of power in it, and she put that on one end of the bed, on the living room. And at the other end of the living room, she put on the old one. And even though it was out of juice, right? And the cat came in, scoped out the room with, cat trees and 14 places to lay down and everything else, and walked right over to the brand new device and laid down on that.
That's quite cool. That is quite cool.
So that I think we need to replenish, because we can really, there has to be something that these kids hear that we don't appreciate.
Yeah.
Being in tune with that. The nice thing that I do like a lot about the PEMF research is, like I said, we've had stuff kicking around for 40 years. It's looking at it. There was a great paper now on the human side looking at knee arthritis that was done treating them twice a day. They reduced their pain by 44% in less than 24 hours.
See, this is amazing. Okay, so I was hanging out with a human physio recently, and he just poo-pooed everything I was bringing to the table, everything I talked about. And the NHS physios were very much, we need really good science behind this. And we were talking about PEMF, and he was just like, science just isn't chunky enough yet for us to advise it. But, this paper, is it quite a strong paper?
They tracked it out on this one also 6 weeks and showed 60% pain improvement over placebo at 6 weeks.